What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again with some value fantasy running backs to target in your fantasy drafts this year. I have 3 running backs that I'm super high on. I think they're in perfect situations to absolutely kill it this year in fantasy. This is going to be half-point PPR. Those are the leagues that I play in, so it just kind of made sense for me to translate that the best way I could over into this with these guys. They're all kind of in the same range, but these are my favorite guys to target, as we do have running backs going earlier in this year's drafts. The majority of the first 2 rounds are filled with running backs. So if you want to be a little contrarian, that's how you can get the upper edge in fantasy drafts. As we saw all the zigzags over the last few years, we saw just a few years ago quarterbacks go in the first couple rounds, but nowadays they're going around like maybe the 5th, 6th round the first time they're coming off the board in some of these leagues. And also wide receivers, we saw even 2 years ago, the no running back strategy, 0 RB, got a lot of buzz. People were targeting wide receivers super early, but now we're back to running backs being the main focal point. So if you want to be different, if you want to target those wide receivers, or just target maybe one running back in the first few rounds and get one of these later middle round guys that I'm going to be recommending here, I think these are the perfect guys to do so in that kind of strategy. So before we get going though, if you could drop a like on this video, it really goes a long way. I'd really appreciate that. But let's hop right into it. So first guy up, Rashaad Penny. I was super high on this guy out of college. Last year I actually recommended him in one of my videos, but it just didn't turn out the way it just seemed like it wasn't meant to be. Because he started off the year kind of struggling with his weight, and then he had a hand injury that put him behind the 8 ball a little bit, missed a few weeks there, lost the job to Chris Carson during the preseason. It sounded like it was kind of up in the air who was going to be the lead dog, but Carson took over when he got those opportunities, looked really good in the preseason while Penny was still kind of going through that injury. And then when he started getting his opportunities, this looked like he had to shake off some rust. It wasn't until the later half of the year when we finally started seeing the Rashaad Penny of San Diego State. Great lateral movement, could really just cut on a dime, and has that speed as well. Kind of an underrated speed back, can really break some big runs. So with that ability back, and then coming back this year, seems like he cut down a little bit. He's taken it more serious because he really kind of had a disappointing first year. This guy was a first-round pick, had all the talent in the world, just a perfect, I think, running back for this system. And this is the number 1, or maybe the number 2 rushing attack in all NFL, just based on rushing attempts per game. We saw that last year, as you can see on the screen, 32.8 rush attempts per game, second in the NFL, only behind Baltimore, and that was pretty much because Lamar Jackson was just running the ball 100 times per game over the last few weeks. But Seattle, on a per play basis, they were probably the most rushing attempts per game if you do it like percentage wise, because they only ran around 62 plays per game. So over 50% of the time they're running the ball. So this offense, very prolific in the run game. They really established their game around that. Brian Schottenheimer, as you can see in the screen, just kind of obsessed with developing that run game. And it definitely worked out. I mean, they really got in some good situations, were able to control the games and just be in a lot of games, even though their defense did take a big hit, losing a lot of pieces. But like I said, though, Rashaad Penny added the upside. You lose a big chunk of those touches with Mike Davis. He was pretty active in the receiving end. That's a big part of fantasy scoring with running backs. One of the best ways you can target them is guys that can get some receptions. I think Penny does have that upside with Mike Davis out of the picture. Had around 35 catches last year, and like I said, 146 touches. If we're giving around just 50% of those touches to a guy like Penny, then he would have had 167 touches if you include that 94 of last year. Even though, like I said, he got off to that slow start, and just wasn't able to get it going towards the end of the year. But now with him going into the year fully fresh, kind of can learn have the game slow down for him a little bit and settle in here and show off that ability that he showed the second half of the year. I think this is the guy that can get northwards of 200 touches in this game. That kind of gives him, not this game, in this year, that gives him that running back 2 upside. And also, if Chris Carson, a guy that has some injury risk throughout his career, he's coming off a knee injury. They were pretty hush-hush about it until they kind of had to mention it, that he had a knee surgery during the offseason. That could be an alarm for him, and Penny could overtake him if Carson does go down with that knee injury during the year, if that kind of sparks back up, and Penny takes the hold of that job, and with them kind of investing so much in him, I feel like they would make it his job to lose, unless he was able to kind of really struggle again and Carson was able to take over, which I would doubt if Penny was able to take over that job. I think he's a really good running back, and like I said, a perfect fit in this run-heavy offense, and he can have a huge year. So I'm targeting him as the ADP for him is running back 32 currently. It could change a little bit heading into the prime of the draft, fantasy draft season. But right now, I think he's going to be a running back too. Perfect guy to target if you want to go with him as your second running back. So I think he has running back one upside. Like I said, if Carson does go down with an injury or if Penny just really took over that lead job. And for my second guy, Sony Michel, almost like the opposite of what I just argued for Penny, as Sony Michel is a guy that does have that job in his hands, but he does have that injury risk like Chris Carson does. But I think they're just being really cautious with Sony Michel. I mean, they're coming off that Super Bowl win. Michel went in, he looked healthy the whole entire playoff run. So I'm not sure where he would have even picked up that injury. I think it was just kind of cleaning up the knee a little bit, making sure it's 100% ready to go for the start of the year. I mean, he had a very impressive rookie year. After a slow start, this guy was producing a ton of yards after contact, looked really good, making quick cuts in the holes, and he wasn't even able to show off his breakout or his large kind of chunk yardage gains that he showed at Georgia in college, where he was able to pick up 20-plus yard runs a lot, but he wasn't able to show that for the Patriots. But now with the year or an off season where he was able to kind of fix up that knee, hopefully rest a lot. It seems like they're being super cautious with him. The Patriots' main reporter, Mike Reese, said that the surgery was kind of precautionary, just kind of clean things up. And Sony Michel even said that he's going to be probably ready for training camp, but then they just put him on the PUP list recently. But I think they're just being super cautious. Like I said, I'm not too impressed with Damian Harris. This guy's getting a lot of buzz now that Sony Michel does have that question mark around him. But I don't think he's that great of a talent. I think Sony Michel is just better than him in a lot of spots. And if he could just get a few more catches, that's another downside of him. But just the running attack of this Patriots team is just such a good fantasy situation. We're talking probably one of the best, if not the best, run-blocking offensive lines in all of football. I think he's going to be due for some positive regression with the touchdowns as well. If you look on the screen here, he had 42 red zone carries. That was 6th in the NFL, and that was only in 13 games. With 2 of those games, the first game, him being kind of shaking off some rust, only had 10 carries, kind of struggled in that one. And then one of those other games, he got hurt, where he had that kind of really kind of unlucky knee injury where he was like hit in the backfield. And then he wasn't able to continue after that game, only 4 carries. So this is a guy that if he plays all 16 games, I think he honestly could have 50 red zone carries and be able to go over 10 touchdowns. This Patriots offense is one of the most, if not the most consistent offense, probably alongside the Saints over the last few years. They're always high in plays run. That's a great thing to have as a fantasy owner if your team's offense is on the field for the most of like teams in the NFL. Like they had the second most plays last year, most in 2017. It's always going to be very good for fantasy players. And the Sony Michel touchdown upside is there. He probably should be able to back himself into a few more catches. Only had like 7 last year. And now this offensive line is great. Obviously, that injury risk is there. But I think the risk is worth it now with Sony Michel. He's starting to trend down. He's running back 25 currently. And that's just after the news came out that he got put in the PUP. I could see him honestly trending down towards running back 28 maybe, or somewhere around that. And this is a guy that could finish easily in the top 20 running backs, if not around running back 15 if he does stay healthy and all those things pan out, like I said, with that great offensive line, the touchdown, positive regression. This is a guy that can go over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, and he was an absolute workhorse when he was out there. 209 carries in 13 games. Definitely a target of mine in those middle rounds. Again here, for my final guy, right around that range, Latavius Murray. I'm going to be preferring the upside of a guy like Sony Michel or Rashaad Penny, but Latavius Murray is a safe safe pick and running back. You can't say that about many guys in this range, but I feel like Latavius Murray is one of those people because the role has been really carved out over the last 2 years with Mark Ingram alongside Kamara. It's been very straightforward. Kamara seems to get, or I might be saying his name wrong, Kamara, seems to get around like 65-60% of the snaps each game, and that kind of works out with a player like Latavius Murray. He's not a guy that is going to be that good with like 80% of the snaps. He's kind of more of a situational back, but when he is fresh, he's very powerful, has good speed for his size, and he's been one of the most prolific kind of red zone runners in the whole NFL over the last few years with the Raiders. He was a very high volume red zone rusher, and that's kind of exactly where Mark Ingram really got a lot of his fantasy value. We had 12 goal line carries in 2018 in just 12 games, got a good amount of touchdowns there, and then 2017 had 13 goal line carries, a good amount of touchdowns there as well. It made Mark Ingram a great fantasy running back, especially in 2017. He was like running back 10 or around that range or something like crazy like that. Had a really good year. We're talking another elite run blocking offensive line. Really good situation for Latavius Murray, who's running behind one of the worst offensive lines in all football last year in Minnesota. Absolute train wreck there. And it's a great offense here. I think he can fit in that Mark Ingram role very well alongside a great running back like Alvin Kamara, who's going to kind of lessen the load off him and give like Latavius Murray like 10 to 15 touches a game. And they're going to be a little bit, I think, cautious maybe with a guy like Kamara. I mean, their goal is the Super Bowl. It's a very good team here in New Orleans, and there's no reason to overwork him. And Latavius Murray is a perfect kind of like chew the clock guy. Give him around 40% of the snaps, top 5 scoring offense around there, probably again for the Saints here. Very good team and situation for Latavius Murray. So I think he could be a high-end running back 3, a good flex for your teams, or maybe even a low-end running back 2 if things kind of work out for him in this offense. And so it's a really good situation right in that Mark Ingram role. We saw Mark Ingram had 2 of his best years of his career, very efficient, and Latavius Murray has probably never ran behind an offensive line this good. Maybe one of those Raiders years he had a good offensive line, but still, this is the best offense he's ever been in. So I love Latavius Murray. So those are the 3 guys I'm targeting. You got Latavius, but I probably ranked them the way I like them. Penny's my favorite, Sony Michel right after him, and then Latavius Murray. So those are the guys. Definitely be targeting them if you aren't having if you don't draft at least 2 running backs in the first few rounds, and those are the guys I would target as my running back 2/running back 3s. If you can get 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds though, and then you get like a Latavius Murray or one of these other 2 guys in like the 5th or 6th round, your team is going to be looking amazing. Really like that strategy. So hope you guys enjoyed the video though. Slap a like on it if you did. Really appreciate that. Hit that sub button as well to get some more fantasy football draft preview content, some advice of mine, some of my favorite players to target in your own drafts. And we'll see you back here again next time.